All right, good morning, everyone. Can anybody see this from where you're sitting? Okay, just checking. The title of my talk is, What Were They Thinking? That's the question that came to mind after the results of the election came in. My first thought was this: freaking idiot. I don't know how many of you speak Gaelic, but I think we can kind of derive what it actually they're trying to say. And I do not suffer fools lightly. Were the people just ignorant, stupid? I couldn't understand it. We are all ignorant on some level. We all lack knowledge of something, somewhere, something. And we all do stupid things from time to time. If there's nobody that cannot say they've not done something stupid. But that's not the same as being stupid. I use the definition from Forrest Gump. Stupid is as stupid does. And this is not a new problem. Socrates, 400 BC, states, smart people learn from everything and everyone. Average people learn through their experiences, but stupids always have all the answers. Even the Bible warns in Proverbs, do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. And even Einstein quips, two things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity. And I'm not so sure about the universe. There was a theologian named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was a minister in Nazi Germany during the war times. He did a whole long study about stupidity. And then he has quite a few lines, but a few of the ones is, stupidity is more dangerous enemy to good than malice. And that it is not an intellectual flaw, but a moral one. In 1976, a Carlo Cipollone wrote the 5 laws of stupidity. One being, we underestimate the number of stupid people and the damage they cause. He states there are 4 types of people: helpless, intelligent, bandit, and stupid. Helpless people take actions that cause loss to themselves. Intelligent people take actions which benefit themselves and others. Bandits take actions which benefit themselves and cause harm to others, while stupid people take actions with no benefits to themselves and causing harm to others. Others added a few more laws, like stupid people cannot be persuaded with reason or protesting. Stupidity often arises from the lack of independent thinking. It's like peer pressure or groupthink. And stupidity thrives under dictatorship and authoritarian regimes. But like Bonhoeffer said, it is a moral issue, and that is at least something we can address. And that's where the main topic of my talk is on consciousness. Our level of consciousness is indicative of our view of life and helps explain the election results. Webster's defines consciousness in 2 ways. One, the state of being conscious, awareness, especially of what is around you. And 2, the totality of one's thoughts, feelings, and impressions. Michael Singer, who some of you may know, did a talk that I listened to about consciousness. He said, all there is energy and consciousness, which recognizes the energy in its many forms. There's a lot of information and videos concerning the subject, not merely psychological inquiry, but also scientific research into the location of consciousness and where it comes from. I even read an article in Popular Mechanics. Like I said, it's amazing how many sources there are on this subject. Infinite number. There's a group called the materialists who believe it comes from the brain, that all existence is explained through matter. Then I had an incident way back in high school, playing football practice. I was totally conscious going along, and then I woke up 2 hours later at my house. I have no experience, no understanding. I finished my practice. I went into the locker room, found my locker, opened my locker, changed my clothes, found my ride home, and did not wake up again until I was home sitting in a chair. I have no recollection whatsoever of those hours lost. And I don't know where this fits in, but it's a loss of consciousness, which seemed to indicate physical action caused that. And so that would go along with the materialist view. But 2020 Nobel Prize winner, Sir Roger Penrose, wrote, "Consciousness exists outside the body, independent and capable of being in all places at the same time." This is a totally different view. And then, of course, there are many documented cases of near-death experiences where people seem to confirm that same conclusion. They witness their body from outside their body. They witness a whole bunch of things, and then they merge back into it. It's a unique experience. But the crux of my talk is based on the work of Dr. David Hawkins and his book, Power versus Force. I don't know if you ever heard it or read it. And it's a study, 20-year study, mapping human consciousness. And that was really my main interest, consciousness in this particular. Dr. Hawkins is an MD, PhD, was a psychiatrist specializing in drug and alcohol treatment. Many of his patients were trying to escape and transcend their current conditions, which led to his long 20-year study. In the early 60s at Harvard, there was a Dr. Richard Alpert, who did legal studies on the therapeutic effects of psychedelic drugs. Taking psychedelics allows people to experience a different level of awareness or consciousness. But it did not last. It was only temporarily rising above their current conditions. To seek a more permanent state, he traveled to India, found a guru, and returned as Ram Dass, who much of us know as Ram Dass means lover of God. A recent trend is ayahuasca. This is a 1,000-year-old Native American or indigenous South American tradition that uses this concoction, I'll call it, that allows you to experience a different state of awareness. Again, but these are all temporarily states. And what most of us are seeking is a more permanent state of awareness. In this book, Dr. Hawkins goes into great deal of detail about the methodology of his study. I'm not going to talk much about that. There's a lot of, it's like I said, 20-year study, millions and millions of calculations and stuff. So it's anybody who wants to read it, wow, this book, like I said, it goes into great detail. What interests me was that consciousness was a measurable quality, attainable through accepted scientific inquiry. Through kinesiology, or muscle testing, he showed that we innately know what is good for us or what is bad. And I don't know if you're familiar with kinesiology. It's a simple test. You have your arm up, you ask questions or even showed pictures. Things that are good for you, you have strength. If things are bad for you, you lose strength and there's a weakness, and it's a measurable device. So this is a lot of this testing went along those lines. And I never found any credible argument against his findings. Emmy, you here? So we have some handouts here. Again, his whole study was mapping consciousness. And this is a diagram of the configuration of the information he ended up with. And it's pretty dry. That's why I added a second page with a little more interest. But basically, we'll start at the bottom, where you start at the lowest number is a 20. And it works its way all the way up to 1,000. And these levels equate to energy fields or energy levels. And they also equate directly with the chakras, the part that we just did. Like the base chakra translates at the 200 level. The 200 is kind of right in the middle. And then you have the solar plexus at 275. You have the throat chakra at 350. We have a heart chakra at 505. The third eye is 525. And then you have the crown chakra at 600. And if you look across this chart, like I said, it's pretty dull and kind of hard to understand, but the log is the numbers I was referring to. And the levels indicate the emotions and feelings that we experience. And as you can see, most all of on the levels, the lower levels, shame, guilt, apathy, grief, these are all things we all experience at time to time. That is not the same as saying this is where you exist, this isn't where your consciousness is. We do go back and forth with different things as we experience things in our lives. So the fact that you get angry at times doesn't mean you're low consciousness and you're fearful and all this other. So I don't want it to be, it's not a linear thing. So don't take it as too direct, telling you this is what you are and this is what you are not. And some of his descriptions in this book is amazing. Again, he's a psychiatrist working with these patients. And one I wanted to read you is fear, because fear is one of those feelings that everybody has experienced some point in time in their life, but do you live it all the time? That's the question. So this is from, again, his definition of what fear is for him. From this viewpoint of the level, the world looks hazardous, full of traps and threats. Fear is the favorite official tool for control by oppressive totalitarian agencies and regimes. And insecurity is the stock and trade of major manipulators of the marketplace. The media and advertiser play to fear to increase market shares. Sound familiar? Fear limits growth of the personality and leads to inhibitions. Because it takes energy to rise above fear, the oppressor are unable to reach a higher level unaided. Thus, the fearful seek strong leaders who appear to have conquered their fear and lead them out of their slavery, as he calls it. And moving up, a little bit farther up is neutrality, which is at 250. And that's a totally different viewpoint. And I think this is where a lot of our people exist, stand, in this level, if you will. The neutral condition allows for flexibility and non-judgmental, realistic appraisal of problems. To be neutral means to be relatively unattached to outcomes. The expectation that life, with its ups and downs, will be basically okay if only we can roll with the punches is a typical 250 level attitude. And like I said, I think a lot of us are there. Again, this isn't about trying to determine for you where you're at, but it's just that an example again. Power versus force. This, the main title in and of itself, is part of this work. He uses a great example of a world event when India, who was run by Britain for many, many years, finally was able to take back with Gandhi through ahimsa, which is nonviolent. That is the indication of power, when you can do something that is good for all people and positive for the community, whereas Britain took it by force, and that is a negative or low energy thing. Now on the chart here, it says courage is at the 200 level, and this is the fulcrum, they call it, divides the central area of force, which is the lower half, and the upper half, which again, the area of force they call falsehood, and power, which is the upper part, which is truth. The next chart, if you want to look to the colorful chart, a little bit more interesting, shall we say. It's not so dry, but it has the same information. It starts at the lower guilt, the shame, and works its way all the way up. But it also has some other ones that people might relate to, like hell on the side, and purgatory, and in between, and paradise and heaven. A lot of people can relate to those Now, on the other side, you have a victim and abusers, and then you have the self-awareness and self-empowerment. So these are all just kind of different ways of looking at these different levels of understanding, and that maybe some of these different wordings may help you understand how you fit in the world. One of the more interesting things I learned was how few people ever rise above their current level of consciousness. Only 8% of the world's population resides at the 400 level. Only 4% of the world's population resides at the 500 level. And only 1 in a few million are at the 600 level. He also states that even though only 15% of the population calibrates at 200 or level or more, the collective power of that 15% has the weight to counterbalance the negativity of the remaining 85% of the world's population. That's pretty amazing in itself. So all your good work is going to help the planet, even though you may not realize it. While transformation is difficulty, it can happen. Trauma and tragedy often are a catalyst for such change. I was listening to one story, this woman, a career military woman, her name is Suzanne Geisman. She was, again, career military, high up, Joint Chiefs of Staff office. Then 9/11 happened, and she came back to experience what happened at the Pentagon. That was her first a little shift in her life. So she realized, oh, there's something more. And then unfortunately, another tragic incident happened, and she lost her daughter to a tragic lightning strike of all things. And this turned her life all around. And you can go look up, she gives great talks and all sorts of stuff on YouTube and other places. So like I said, transformation is possible, but you have to be willing to do the work. That's the hard part. And while we can't fix the rest of the world, we can work on ourselves. Just reading this book, he says, raised your level 15 points. Just reading the book. An individual's level of consciousness is determined by the principles to which they are committed. That's a very important point. By the principles to which they are committed. Being aware of greater possibilities opens the door to transformation. Our lives are the results of our thoughts, beliefs, and choices, all of which can be changed. We just have to be willing to do the work. And as Dr. Wayne Dyer said, change your thoughts, change your life. Thank you for listening. Namaste.
Don't run and take your phone with you, just leave it on the people out.